I watched her walk away, Sophie Mitchell, the woman I thought would always be by my side. My chest felt like it was caving in, but my mind was a haze, barely processing the words she just said. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. "I'm sorry, Ryan," she said, her voice shaking slightly, but she still didn't look at me. "I have to go back to Jordan. He's the one for me." My throat tightened. I didn't want to believe it. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms, but I couldn't stop her. I couldn't say anything to make her stay. She had already made up her mind. She had chosen him, her Ivy League ex. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Can't be serious," I managed to say, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. "I am," she whispered, her words like a dagger to my chest. "I'm sorry, Ryan, I really am." Felt like the ground beneath me was shifting, and I was powerless to stop it. I could feel my heart breaking, each piece of it shattering, but I couldn't cry. I was numb. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed the signs? Sophie turned and walked away, her silhouette disappearing into the distance. I stood there, frozen, staring at the spot where she had been, my mind scrambling for answers that would never come. What was wrong with me? What did I do wrong? She had been everything to me, the girl I thought I'd marry, the one who knew me better than anyone else. But now she was gone back to him. My chest ached, but it wasn't just from the pain of losing her, it was the anger too. Anger at myself for trusting her. Anger at Jordan for swooping in when I wasn't looking. I had given everything to her, and she threw it all away for him. I slammed my fist against the brick wall, the sharp pain in my knuckles momentarily distracting me from the overwhelming ache in my heart. I took a few deep breaths, my head spinning as I tried to make sense of the mess I was in. But it wasn't about figuring it out anymore. It was about survival, about moving on. I looked down at my phone, the screen lighting up with messages from work. I had put my entire life into this company, into my career. Maybe that's what I needed to focus on now. Career, success, revenge. I turned and walked to my car, the weight of the world on my shoulders. I couldn't change what had happened. I couldn't make Sophie stay, but I could change myself. I could make her regret this. I would become someone she'd wish she had never left. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I looked in the rearview mirror, seeing the place where I'd been standing moments ago. It was the end of something, but I refused to let it be the end of me. I would make sure that Jordan, whoever he was, regret ever taking her from me. And Sophie, she would feel it too. She had no idea what she was walking away from, but she would. She would regret it, and I would make sure of it. It had been months since Sophie left. Months of sleepless nights, endless thoughts of what went wrong. But somewhere along the way, I stopped focusing on the pain. My mind, my heart had slowly shifted. I threw myself into my work. My career became my escape, my purpose. It was the one thing I could control. I'd always been ambitious, but now it felt like a lifeline. I became more than just the guy who had been dumped by his girlfriend. I was Ryan Parker, the guy who was going places. And nothing, not even the heartbreak, was going to stop me. Work was relentless, but that was okay. It gave me something to focus on, something to fill the empty spaces Sophie left behind. I'd pushed my personal life to the back of my mind. No time for love. No time for anything except succeeding. It was a Thursday afternoon when I first heard about Jordan Hughes' company. A friend of mine from another firm sent me a message. "Jordan's company is tanking. They're looking to sell." My heart skipped a beat. Jordan. The guy who had everything I thought I could never be. Had the wealth, the connections, and now, it seemed, he was losing it all. For a moment I felt a flash of something. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just satisfaction. It was control. I gripped my phone tighter, a cold smile spreading across my face. He'd beaten me once, staking Sophie from me. But now, I had the upper hand. I called James right away. James had been with me since day one, always there to keep me grounded. We'd built our careers together, and I needed his input. "Hey, James, you sitting down?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, what's up?" "Jordan's company. It's about to fall apart, and they're selling. I think I'm going to buy it." There was silence on the other end. "Wait, what? You're kidding?" "Nope, the deal's going down in the next couple of weeks. I've been thinking about it, and this could be the perfect chance." Ryan, are you sure about this? It's not just about hurting Jordan. You're talking about a huge investment, man. I know. But think about it. I take over his company. I take over everything he built and everything he thought he had over me. My voice sounded different, colder. I'll be in control. James let out a long breath. I get it, but you've got to ask yourself, what are you really after? Revenge or growth? I didn't answer right away. James was right. I had to think about this. This wasn't just about taking something from Jordan. It was about me proving to myself that I could rise above the betrayal. That I could be more than the guy who got dumped. You know, I'm doing this for the right reasons, I said, trying to convince myself as much as him. It's not just about revenge. It's about moving forward. And this deal? It's the next step for me. Just be careful, James warned. I don't want you getting caught up in something that's going to end up destroying you. I ended the call, my thoughts racing. I had the resources, had the means. I could do this. The next few days felt like a blur. I met with Mr. Williamson, my financial backer, and laid out the plan. He didn't ask questions, just handed me the paperwork. The deal was set in motion. But even as the deal became more real, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Was I doing this because I truly wanted it? Or was I still chasing after something Sophie had taken from me? Something I couldn't get back. I shook my head. I wasn't that guy anymore. I had to move forward. This was business. No emotions. I had to stay focused. By the time the contract was signed, Jordan Hughes' company was mine. And with it, I now held the keys to the empire that had once been his. I had become the man who controlled everything his past, his business, his failure. I smiled to myself. Sophie would never see this coming, neither would Jordan. I wasn't the guy who had been left behind anymore. I was Ryan Parker, the man who took what he wanted. And I wasn't done yet. I stared at the contract in front of me, the words blurring together. The ink had barely dried, but the weight of what I was about to do was already sinking in. Buying Jordan's company wasn't just a business transaction, it was a statement that I had control. A statement that I could take everything he'd built and destroy it piece by piece. But as the reality of the deal settled in, so did a creeping doubt. I glanced across the table at Mr. Williamson. He was the one who'd made this possible. The one who had given me the financial backing I needed. The man had no face, no past, really. Just a collection of numbers and connections. His suit was immaculate, his expression unreadable. He never smiled, never flinched. He was a businessman in the truest sense, and right now, I felt like a pawn in his game. "You sure you're okay with this?" he asked, his deep voice cutting through the silence. "It's not too late to back out." I forced a smile, though it didn't reach my eyes. "I'm good. This is exactly what I want. Are you sure it's what you need?" He leaned forward, his steely gaze meeting mine. Revenge can be a powerful motivator, but it can also be your undoing. I didn't respond immediately. His words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. Mr. Williamson wasn't wrong. A part of me was doing this to prove something to Sophie, to Jordan, to everyone who ever doubted me. But another part of me knew that this wasn't just about business. It was about something deeper, something that gnawed at me every night when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "I'm not here to talk about need," I said, my voice more forceful than I intended. "I'm here to talk about results. This is what I want, and I'm doing it." Mr. Williamson nodded slowly, his fingers tapping against the edge of his desk. "Very well. I'll transfer the funds, and the company is yours." The deal was done. I sat in my office later that day, staring out of the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled beneath me, full of life, full of opportunity. I should have felt victorious. But all I could hear was the sound of Sophie's voice in my head. Her words echoing, "I'm sorry, Ryan. I have to go back to Jordan." It wasn't about the company anymore. It wasn't about the money or the power. It was about something else. I was beginning to understand that, but I wasn't sure what to do with that knowledge. Did I even care about the company? Or was this just an elaborate way of holding on to the past? "Ryan," Claire's voice broke me out of my thoughts. She was standing in the doorway of my office, her eyes scanning me with concern. "You okay?" I turned away from the window and gave her a curt nod. "Yeah, just thinking." She walked in, leaning against the doorframe. "I can tell. You've been on edge since the deal went through. This isn't like you." I didn't know how to explain it to her, not without revealing more than I wanted. I just need to focus on the future." She raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "And what about the past? You've been carrying that around for a while, haven't you?" I couldn't argue with that. The weight of my past decisions, Sophie's betrayal, Jordan's arrogance, my own failures, had been hanging over me for months. Felt like I was drowning in it. But now, with the company in my hands, I was supposed to feel free, right? "Look, I get it," Claire said, pushing herself off the doorframe and stepping closer. "You've got what you wanted. But don't fool yourself into thinking that this," she gestured to the office, "the deal. Everything is going to fix what happened with Sophie or Jordan. This won't make it right." I felt a surge of frustration. "You don't understand. I have to do this." "I understand more than you think," she replied quietly. "But trust me, revenge won't bring you peace. It's a hollow victory." I opened my mouth to argue, but the words didn't come. I just stared at her, my mind racing. Was she right? Was I so blinded by my anger that I couldn't see what I was truly doing? She looked at me for a moment longer, then softened. "Just be careful, Ryan. I don't want you losing yourself in this." She left, and I sat there in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. I had the company. I had the power. But did I really have control? The deal with Jordan's company was the first step. But the consequences were already starting to unfold. I could feel it in my gut. My moral compass was beginning to shift, and I wasn't sure if I was still on the right path. Revenge was easy to chase. It was a clear target, something I could measure. But peace, forgiveness, those weren't as simple. Those were things I wasn't sure I even knew how to find anymore. The price of winning was starting to feel too high. It's funny how life can change in a matter of weeks. One moment, I was fighting for control of my own future. The next, I owned everything Jordan Hughes had spent years building. The company was mine, now my name on every document, every email, every decision. But none of that felt as satisfying as I thought it would. I stood in the boardroom, staring across the polished wood table at Jordan. The man who'd stolen everything from me now had to answer to me. It was surreal. He sat there, looking as cold as ever. But there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Something that told me he knew this wasn't just about business. "Ryan," he said, his voice clipped, "you've got what you wanted." I leaned back in my chair, trying to play it cool. "I think I've got a bit more than that." Jordan's jaw tightened. I could see the pride in his eyes. He was used to being in control, but not anymore. I was the one calling the shots now, and he was the one left trying to keep his head above water. "Don't get cocky," he muttered. I raised an eyebrow. "It's not about cockiness. It's about survival. And you're about to see just how ruthless survival can be." He shifted in his seat, his face a mask of frustration. "I wouldn't be so sure. This company was built on more than just money. You'll learn that the hard way." I wanted to tell him to shut up too, remind him how he'd taken everything from me without a second thought, but I held it in. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, proving I could rise above the mess he'd created. "Just make sure you keep up with the numbers," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This isn't your playground anymore." The door opened, and Claire walked in. She had a look of concern on her face, the kind that always made me wonder if she could see right through me. "Ryan, we need to talk," she said, her eyes flicking between me and Jordan. I didn't want to deal with this now, not with Jordan sitting right across from me, not when I had just taken control of everything. But I nodded, signaling for her to wait until Jordan left. "Anything else, Jordan?" I asked, my tone flat. Jordan stood up, glaring at me for a second longer before turning on his heel. "I'll be in my office, waiting for instructions." Once the door clicked shut behind him, Claire came over to sit across from me. Her expression was guarded, like she was walking on eggshells. "Are you okay?" she asked, the concern in her voice making it clear she wasn't just talking about the company. I exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I'm fine." She didn't buy it. "Ryan, I've seen that look before. You're angry, and I get why. But this isn't going to fix anything." I leaned back in my chair, running my fingers through my hair. "I don't need fixing. I need control." "You've got control, but you've lost sight of what's important," Claire said, her voice steady but firm. "What's the point of all this? What's the end game?" I didn't know. At least I didn't know how to explain it to her. It was about more than business, more than money. It was about showing Sophie, showing everyone that I wasn't the one who had lost. I'm not doing this for them, I said, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. I'm doing this for me. Her eyes softened, but she didn't back down. I get that. But the more you focus on revenge, the less you'll focus on healing. Yeah. And you're not going to find peace in a boardroom, Ryan, you know that. I didn't respond right away. She was right, in a way. It wasn't peace I was after. It was something else. I didn't know what, but I wasn't going to find it by playing the game the way Jordan had. I'm fine, Claire, I said, standing up and gathering the papers in front of me. I've got it under control. Shh. She didn't argue. She just gave me that look, the one that told me she wasn't convinced, but she wasn't about to force the issue either. Just, don't lose yourself in this, she said quietly before walking out of the room. I stood there for a long moment, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Was I losing myself in this? Is this really about taking control? Or was it just about hurting Jordan, hurting Sophie? The door opened again, and I didn't have to look up to know who it was. You wanted to see me? Jordan's voice echoed through the room. I met his gaze, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes that resembled fear. It wasn't the confident arrogance I was used to. It wasn't the man who had everything. It was the man who had nothing. This is it, I said, standing up to face him. The start of something new. And trust me, Jordan, you're not going to like the way this plays out. He didn't say anything, but his silence spoke volumes. His empire was crumbling, and I was the one holding the wrecking ball. I don't know why I agreed to this meeting. Maybe I wanted to see it all unravel in person. Maybe I wanted to look Jordan in the eye and remind him that the world didn't revolve around him anymore. Or maybe I just needed to prove to myself that I was in control. Either way, there I was, standing in the middle of his company's headquarters. The boardroom was quiet, the air thick with tension. Jordan sat at the far end of the table, arms crossed, staring at me like I was the last thing he wanted to deal with. Good. The feeling was mutual. You really think this is how it's going to play out? Jordan's voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the anger beneath it. I think you're the one who doesn't get it, I shot back. I'm in charge now, and you're just the guy who lost everything. He clenched his jaw, his eyes narrowing, but he didn't say anything. Maybe there was nothing left to say. I leaned forward, my elbows on the table, staring him down. You used to think you could take whatever you wanted. Well, not anymore. Now you answer to me. Is that really what this is about? Jordan's voice was a sneer now, dripping with sarcasm. You're just here for payback? I could feel the anger bubbling up, the bitterness, the old wounds that hadn't healed. What else is left, Jordan? You took everything from me, and now I'm taking it all back. Jordan's gaze flickered for a moment like he was processing my words. And what does that make you, Ryan? Someone who's so consumed by vengeance that he doesn't know who he is anymore. The words hit harder than I expected. I wanted to fire back. Wanted to tell him he had no idea what he was talking about. But the truth was, part of me wondered if he was right. Before I could respond, the door opened behind me, and I turned to see Sophie standing there. My heart skipped. She was just as beautiful as I remembered, but the look on her face wasn't the one I expected. She didn't look relieved or happy to see me. She looked ... unsure, like she didn't belong there, Sophie. My voice caught, but I quickly cleared my throat. What are you doing here? She hesitated, her eyes darting between me and Jordan. I needed to talk to you, Ryan. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Talk. About what, Sophie? My voice was sharp, my frustration spilling over. You've had your chance. You made your choice. I know, she whispered, stepping into the room. But I never meant for any of this to happen. Yeah, well, it did. You left me for him. I pointed at Jordan, my tone growing colder. You made your decision, Sophie. You don't get to walk in here and act like everything's fine. She flinched, her eyes watering as she looked at me. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I was doing what was best for me, for my future. Best for you? I spat the words out, my anger bubbling over. Never cared about what was best for me, Sophie. You were too busy chasing what you thought was better. Ryan, please. Her voice cracked, but she pushed forward. I've realized I was wrong. I made a mistake. I hurt you, and I'm sorry, but I'm not the same person I was when I left. She stopped herself, as if she couldn't find the words.
Oh.
I was silent for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. The truth was, I didn't know how to feel. I glanced at Jordan, and he was leaning back in his chair, arms folded. He didn't even look like he cared. This was all some kind of game to him, wasn't it? I could see it in his eyes, the same arrogance, the same sense of entitlement that had driven me mad for so long. But now I had the upper hand. You don't get to just come back into my life, Sophie, I said quietly, the words heavy with finality. You made your choice, and I can't just forget that. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan, I never stopped loving you. I know I messed up, but you don't get to say that now, I interrupted, my voice shaking with emotion. You don't get to pretend like you didn't tear me apart and then walk back in here like nothing happened. It's too late for that. I turned away from her, facing Jordan again. He was quiet, his expression unreadable, but I could feel his eyes on me. He knew what was at stake here. He knew the war wasn't just between us, it was between me and myself. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. You're both toxic, I said, my voice softer now, resigned. You both hurt me in ways I don't think I can ever heal from. Sophie's face fell, her lips trembling. Ryan, please don't say that. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I looked at her for a long moment. It was hard to look at her and not feel the weight of everything that had happened between us. The years of love, the years of trust, all shattered by one decision. Finally I spoke, my voice firm but raw. I don't know if I can forgive you, Sophie. I just don't know if I can go back to the way things were. The room fell silent. Sophie didn't respond, and Jordan stayed out of it, watching like a spectator. And in that moment, I realized something. I had a choice. Could continue down this path of revenge, of hatred, and never find peace, or I could try to move on. But that wasn't something I could decide in a single moment. It was something I'd have to figure out on my own. I wasn't sure why I agreed to meet her. After everything that had happened, everything she'd done, I should have told her to stay away. But there I was, waiting in a small cafe on the corner of my street, watching the door, knowing she was about to walk through it. When Sophie finally entered, I froze for a moment. She looked the same, but there was something different about her. Maybe it was the way her eyes flickered nervously, like she wasn't sure what she was walking into. Maybe it was because I no longer recognized the girl I once knew. She spotted me, and after a moment's hesitation, made her way to the table. Her steps were slow, hesitant, and for the first time I saw the vulnerability in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Ryan, she said softly, sitting down across from me. I didn't think you'd agree to meet me. Yeah, well, I didn't think you'd be walking back into my life either, I replied, trying to keep my voice even. But there it was again, the bitterness. It didn't feel like it would ever leave. She looked down, hands fidgeting with the napkin on the table. I know. I messed up, Ryan. I made a huge mistake. And I can't stop thinking about it. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to let her off the hook, but I couldn't stop myself from asking. What exactly did you mess up, Sophie? Leaving me for Jordan? Or the way you've been lying to yourself about everything? Her eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't wipe them away. I was stupid. I thought I needed something more, something better. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. But every word she said felt like a jab. So now you're telling me that what we had wasn't enough? I never said that, she whispered, looking at me like I was the one who could fix everything. I thought he was the answer to something I was missing. But I've realized that he's not, and you. You were everything I needed. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to remind her of all the hurt she'd caused. But another part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she hadn't really meant to hurt me. But I was torn. You think I'm just supposed to forgive you? I asked, my voice breaking. You left me for him, Sophie. You left me. Broke my heart. I know, she whispered, her voice thick with regret. I didn't think about you. I was selfish. I just wanted to feel important, I guess. Important, I repeated, my voice harsh now. You left the guy who loved you for a man who doesn't give a damn about you. She flinched at my words, but she didn't try to deny them. Instead, she sighed, her shoulders slumping. I was wrong, Ryan, and I can't change what I did. But I can't keep pretending I'm fine either. Keep thinking about Ubad Isand. I hate myself for letting you go. There was a silence between us, the weight of everything hanging in the air. My heart was pounding in my chest, but it wasn't the anger that drove it. It was the uncertainty, the confusion. "Do you think you can fix this?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head slowly. "I don't know if I can. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I want to try. I miss you, Ryan. I miss us." I looked at her, the woman who once had my entire heart, the woman who had walked away without a second thought. And I realized something that made the blood in my veins freeze. I didn't know if I wanted her back. I didn't know if I even could. I leaned back in my chair, trying to make sense of the emotions swirling inside me. "Sophie, I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't even know if I want to. Every day since you left has been a fight, not just with you, but with myself. I wanted to be better, to prove that I could move on, but now, I don't even know what I'm fighting for." Her face fell as she wiped her eyes. "I didn't mean for any of this. I never wanted to hurt you." I closed my eyes, running a hand through my hair. "You don't get it. You didn't just hurt me. You changed me. And I'm not sure I can go back to who I was." For a long time, we sat there in silence. I could hear the quiet hum of the cafe, the clinking of cups, the chatter of distant voices, but none of it mattered. All I could hear was the sound of my own thoughts, the battle inside my mind between holding on and letting go. Finally, Sophie spoke again, her voice small. "I just want a chance, Ryan, to make it right." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in months, and the truth hit me hard. I didn't know if I could ever go back to her. The hurt was too deep, the scars too fresh. "I need to move on, Sophie," I said, the words feeling like a weight lifting from my chest. "I need to focus on myself. I've spent too long holding on to the past." She didn't respond, but I could see the heartbreak in her eyes. It was her turn to feel the weight of what she had lost. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge hadn't healed me. It had only made me numb. It wasn't the answer. Self-growth was. I stood up and Sophie didn't try to stop me. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I had to face it alone for now. I stood at the head of the boardroom table, the weight of my new role pressing down on me. CEO. It didn't feel real yet. The papers had been signed, the transition was complete. But every decision still felt like it was someone else's responsibility. I rubbed my temples, trying to ease the tension building behind my eyes. The company was a beast, demanding attention at every corner. But the thing that kept tugging at me, pulling me out of the corporate world, was something deeper. It was that gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach, the quiet voice telling me that all this success, all these meetings and strategies were nothing compared to the emotional chaos I'd been carrying. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Not now. Not in this moment. "Ryan?" Claire's voice cut through the noise of my thoughts. "We need to discuss the new strategy for next quarter." I blinked, focusing on her for the first time since the meeting started. Claire was sitting across from me, a stack of papers in front of her. She was calm, collected, everything I was trying to be. She had always been that way. But now, there was something different in her gaze. "Right, let's go over it," I said, my voice strained. She shifted her weight, pushing a paper across the table. "Here's the plan for the expansion. But honestly, I think we need to talk about something else first." I frowned. "Something else? What are you talking about?" She hesitated, her fingers nervously drumming against the edge of the table. "It's you." I narrowed my eyes. "Me." She nodded, her gaze soft but serious. "You've been distant lately. I know it's been a lot, but you can't keep carrying this weight. You need to let it go, Ryan." I chuckled, more out of frustration than amusement. "Let it go? I can't just—" "Let it go," she repeated firmly, cutting me off. "You're doing this for the wrong reasons. You've been so focused on what you lost, you're missing what you've gained, what you've built. You're running yourself into the ground." I sat back in my chair, rubbing my hands over my face. She was right. I had been running from the past, running from the emptiness Sophie left behind. I had replaced one obsession with another, letting the need for revenge become my identity. But now, in this quiet moment, I was beginning to see it. "Maybe you're right," I admitted, though the words tasted foreign on my tongue. "Maybe I've been too focused on the wrong things." Claire studied me for a moment, then sighed. "You don't need to keep proving something to everyone, especially to her." My heart sank at the mention of Sophie. I'm not proving anything to her, Claire. She didn't flinch. Then why are you still holding on to the anger? You've got control now, Ryan. You've got the company. You've won. It's time to let go. I clenched my fists beneath the table, the frustration bubbling up. It's not that easy. I know, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. But holding on to revenge won't make you feel better. It'll just make you more empty. I swallowed hard, unable to find the right words. The last few months had been a blur of revenge, power, business. But Claire was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself. I don't know who I am anymore, I admitted, my voice rough. I thought this deal, this company, would fill the void. But it hasn't. It's just more of the same. Claire leaned forward, her eyes meeting mine. It's not about what you have, Ryan. It's about who you are. And you're more than what happened with Sophie. More than this company.
Oh.
Don't let all of this define you. Her words hit me harder than I expected, sinking deep into my chest. The emotional walls I had built up began to crack. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of something else. Hope. Before I could say anything else, Claire stood up. Ryan, She stopped herself, her face flushing as she hesitated. I've been meaning to say this for a while now, and I don't know if this is the right time, but I can't keep pretending like I don't feel it. I care about you, more than I should. The words hit me like a punch, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I'd never expected this from her. Not from Claire, the one who'd been my rock, my friend. I didn't know how to say this before, but she faltered, her voice shaking. I care about you, Ryan, and I think you deserve someone who sees you for who you really are, not just the man trying to rebuild what's broken. I sat there, stunned, unable to process it all. Claire cared about me? In a way that wasn't just about the business, about the past? I didn't know how to respond. Couldn't. I wasn't ready, not for this. But Claire didn't wait for me to respond. She gave me a sad smile, then turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As the door clicked shut behind her, I felt the weight of her words sink in. And for the first time in months, I let myself breathe. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I had to let go of the anger. I had to let go of the past. If I was ever going to move forward, I had to stop fighting battles that weren't mine anymore. The news hit Jordan's company like a tidal wave. It wasn't just the slow decline anymore. It was the full, ugly collapse. I'd been following the reports, reading the headlines, watching it all unfold from a distance. It was almost too easy. It's predictable. But I wasn't the one pulling the strings anymore. Jordan had dug his own grave. All I had to do was sit back and watch. I was in the middle of a meeting when I got the call from James. His voice on the other end was grim, but there was a note of something else, relief, maybe? Ryan, he said, the company's done. Jordan's assets are frozen. Everything's falling apart. I couldn't help the smile that crept across my face. It wasn't satisfaction, it was more like a weight lifting from my chest. The man who thought he could ruin my life was now watching his empire crumble, and I wasn't the one doing it. He was. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the power shift completely in my favor. I had the company. I had control. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger to bring him down. Did they say how long before everything's officially over? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. They're projecting by the end of the week, James replied. Public humiliation, lawsuits, the whole works. It's a mess. Good, I said, the word coming out sharper than I intended. Let him rot. James paused for a moment, and I could almost hear the hesitation on his end. Ryan, don't let this be about him anymore. You've got your own life to live now. I couldn't argue with that. My mind had been consumed by this for so long. Revenge, success, moving on. But was I really moving on if I was still focusing on him? Thanks for the update, I said, cutting the call short. I had work to do. My company was thriving, and the future was looking brighter than ever. It wasn't long before Sophie called me. I could see her name flash on my phone, and for a moment I hesitated. She had tried to reach out a few times, but I had ignored every message, every call. This time I didn't have the energy to ignore her. Ryan, she said, her voice small, hesitant, I need to talk to you. The view was nothing compared to what I had gone through, but for the first time in months, I felt in control. I wasn't the man who was chasing ghosts anymore. I'm listening, I said, my tone neutral. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Never wanted any of this to happen. Jordan's lost everything, and I don't know what to do. I'm so lost, Ryan. I thought I was doing the right thing by being with him, but now it's all falling apart. I was quiet for a moment, letting her words sink in. I could hear the panic in her voice, the desperation. She had thought she could fix things by choosing him, but now she had nothing. Good, I said flatly. He deserves it. But you don't deserve to be hurt like this, Sophie continued. I know I made a mistake. Should have stayed with you. I should have never left. Sophie, stop. I cut her off, my voice steady but cold. I don't need your apologies. Not now, not ever. You made your choice. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, but she didn't speak. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I'm done with you, Sophie, I added, my words firm. This is about me now. Not you, not Jordan. Me. Her voice broke, but I didn't feel any remorse. I never stopped loving you, Ryan. I'm so sorry. Please, I hung up. The truth hit me harder than I expected. As much as I wanted to hurt Sophie, as much as I wanted to see Jordan suffer for what he'd done to me, I didn't feel anything anymore. No anger. No satisfaction. Just ... emptiness. The fight had consumed me for so long that I didn't know what to do when it was over. But then I looked at my company. The numbers were up, the growth was steady, and every meeting brought new opportunities. I had done what I set out to do, built something out of nothing, and that felt better than revenge ever could. I stood up, looking around my office. I had come a long way. And despite everything that had happened, I realized that this wasn't just about winning against Jordan or proving something to Sophie. It was about proving something to myself. The phone rang again. I glanced at the screen. It was Claire. I took a deep breath, knowing I needed to talk to her, needed to hear her voice. She had been right about everything. It's about letting go, about moving on. She was the only one who had seen through the walls I'd built around myself. Hey, I said when I picked up the phone. How's everything? Good, she replied, her voice warm and steady. I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about. I just want you to know, you're doing great. Really, I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Thanks, Claire. That means more than you know. She was quiet for a moment, then said softly, I'm proud of you, Ryan. You've come so far. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel the weight of her words. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the redemption I needed. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the skyline. It felt different now. The city, the view it had all changed somehow, but I wasn't the same person I was a few months ago. I wasn't the guy who had spent every waking moment consumed by anger or revenge. That person was gone, buried under everything I'd worked for, everything I'd rebuilt. I ran my hand through my hair, a quiet satisfaction settling in my chest. My company was thriving, my life was stable, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I had peace, or at least the beginning of it. I had taken control of my fate. No one else. The phone buzzed on my desk, pulling me from my thoughts. I glanced at the screen, and my heart sank when I saw the name, Sophie. She'd tried calling a few times, sending messages, but I had ignored them. I wasn't interested in any more apologies, any more attempts at fixing what could never be fixed. But still, a part of me hesitated. A part of me wondered if this time would be different. I answered the call. Ryan? Her voice was shaky, uncertain. I need to talk to you. I exhaled slowly, my thumb running over the edge of the phone. What's there to say, Sophie? We've been over this, I know, she whispered. But I need to say it. I need to ask for your forgiveness. I've been so selfish, so wrong about everything. I can't keep living with this guilt, Ryan. I made a terrible mistake, and I need you to know that I'm sorry. I could hear the sincerity in her voice, the cracks in her calm exterior. She wasn't the same Sophie I'd once known. She sounded lost, unsure of who she was anymore. I stared at the papers in front of me, the faint rustle of the pages in the silence. For a moment, I felt the old wounds start to reopen, the anger, the betrayal, the heartbreak. But then I felt something else, something I hadn't expected. Relief. I've heard this before, I said quietly. You made your choice, Sophie. You chose him over me. You walked away. I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared. I thought she faltered, taking a shaky breath. I thought I was doing what was best for me. Now I know I wasn't. I shook my head, though she couldn't see it. I can't fix this for you, Sophie. You have to live with it, just like I did. You have to live with the fact that you chose the wrong path. And I'm not the person I was when you left. Her voice trembled. I'm sorry, Ryan. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know how deeply I regret it. I miss you. I miss us. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of her words. I didn't know if I could forgive her. I didn't know if I wanted to. The pain of it all still lingered, but something had shifted inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't consumed by the past. I had learned too much to keep holding on to that. I've moved on, Sophie, I said, the words surprising me as they left my mouth. I've built a life without you. I'm finally okay with it. I'm okay with me. She was silent on the other end, and for a moment I thought she might say something else. But she didn't, and that was okay. Didn't need to hear more. And now, I need you to let go of me, too. You don't get to keep coming back. You don't get to keep haunting me. Another long pause. Then her voice came through, small and fragile. I understand. It wasn't the apology I'd expected, but it was the one I needed. It was the closure that I hadn't even known I was waiting for. I'm sorry for everything, she said softly, and I could tell she meant it. But it didn't matter anymore. I know, I replied, but it's done. It's over. The call ended, and I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone. I didn't feel a surge of victory or relief. I just felt free. I had let go of her, of Jordan, of everything that had held me back. I stood up, walking over to the window and looking out at the city again. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was mine, and that was enough. I didn't need anyone's approval. I had everything I needed right here: control, peace, and the knowledge that I could move forward no matter what. And with that, I smiled.